In the year 2000, 30-year-old physicist Philip Buchanan is still mourning the recent death of his mother when an unexpected letter arrives. Its sender, listed as his father, a man long believed to be dead. The message is cryptic, filled with veiled instructions and half-truths. One thing is clear: someone wanted Philip to follow a trail. Driven by curiosity and a gnawing need for answers, Philip embarks on a journey that leads him far from civilization. A frozen, desolate expanse of northern Greenland. The unforgiving chill of the Greenland wilderness forces Philip to seek shelter, and he finds it in the form of an abandoned mine, its gaping mouth a welcome reprieve from the howling wind. But safety is short-lived. As he steps inside, the entrance collapses behind him, sealing off any chance of retreat. With no choice but to press forward, Philip descends into the darkness, unaware of what truly lies beneath the ice. As he explores the twisted corridors, he stumbles upon scattered diaries left behind by a solitary scientist. The writings speak of desperation, dwindling supplies, isolation, and a grim solution: eating the large cave-dwelling spiders that roam the tunnels. Over time, the scientist observed disturbing physical changes in himself and traced them to a psychoactive toxin within the spiders. After 8 long months, his mind and body were no longer his own. Philip's journey grows stranger when he begins receiving garbled radio transmissions from a man calling himself Tom Redwood. Red, a broken soul ravaged by years of solitude and madness, offers him a deal. Find him, and he'll provide the answers Philip seeks. With only Red's voice to guide him and the scientist's warning haunting him every step, Philip pushes deeper into the mine. The further he descends, the more he realizes he is not alone. Something else moves in the darkness. Something watching, waiting. What began as a search for the truth becomes a descent into isolation, madness, and a terrifying remnant of those who came before. Guided by scattered clues and intricate puzzles, Philip presses deeper into the mine's twisted underbelly. Every step forward brings him closer to the voice of Red, whose cryptic transmissions have been both a lifeline and a warning. Eventually, Philip reaches the heart of the mine, a decaying chamber housing an old incinerator. Inside awaits Red, though not as Philip expected. Red, broken both in body and mind, pleads for release. He begs Philip to end his suffering, to grant him peace in the only way left, with grim resolve. Philip activates the incinerator, fulfilling Red's final wish. In the ashes, he discovers the items Red promised: keys, tools, fragments of knowledge, things that unlock the path ahead. The trail leads Philip to a new section of the mine known only as the Shelter, a forgotten facility hidden even deeper underground. Cold and industrial, the place hums with an eerie stillness. As he navigates the dim corridors, Philip catches sight of something. Someone. A human figure, watching from the shadows. He moves to confront it, but just as he draws near, the lights die. Darkness swallows the corridor. Before he can react, something strikes him from behind. His world collapses into blackness, and he is dragged into the unknown. He wakes in a locked, dimly lit room, his head throbbing, his memory hazy. The last thing he remembers is a shadowy figure in the shelter, and then nothing. His surroundings are unfamiliar, cold, sterile, and eerily silent, but he doesn't stay trapped for long. Spotting a loose panel on the wall, he pries it open and crawls into the narrow confines of the air duct. When he emerges, he finds himself in the heart of an underground research facility, forgotten outpost of the archaic, elevated caste. The secretive organization, once devoted to uncovering alien and forbidden knowledge, has long since fallen into ruin. The halls are littered with debris and stained with the remnants of chaos. Whatever once was studied here has taken a terrible toll. Philip soon realizes he's not alone. Roaming the corridors of the infected, twisted feral echoes of the base's former personnel. Their bodies are fast, contorted, and driven by something that mimics hunger and rage. Now trapped in a labyrinth of collapsed chambers and haunted laboratories, Philip must evade the infected, uncover the truth behind the archaic's downfall, and survive whatever darkness has been unleashed beneath the ice. As Phil delves deeper into the ruined facility, uncovering scraps of research and fragments of its tragic history, a disturbing truth begins to surface. He is infected, but something is different. Unlike the others, twisted into mindless, violent husks, Philip's mind doesn't dissolve into the infected hive. Instead, something else takes root. A voice. It calls itself Clarence. Sarcastic, mocking, and disturbingly self-aware. Clarence is no mindless parasite. He worms his way into Philip's thoughts. Speaking with a cruel wit, he jeers at Philip's every move, ridicules his fear, and slowly begins to unravel the line between memory and madness. Yet Clarence isn't just a hallucination. He knows things, secrets buried within the facility, truths no sane mind would dare touch. As the line between Philip and the voice blurs, the real horror becomes clear. The infection hasn't taken his body, it's trying to take his mind. Now Philip must navigate not only the horrors stalking him from the shadows, but the venomous voice echoing from within. His greatest enemy may not be the infected, but the thing he's becoming. Amid the ruins of the archaic facility, between the crumbling walls, blood-stained terminals, and the ever-present threat of the infected, Philip makes contact with the voice that offers a sliver of hope. Through the fractured static of the base's crumbling computer network, he hears her, Amabel Swanson, surviving research scientist. Trapped within her laboratory, she managed to seal herself away from the horrors consuming the facility. Her voice is a lifeline, clear, rational, and human. Amabel reveals she has knowledge of the infection afflicting Philip, and more importantly, she believes she can help. But there's a catch. She's stranded in a distant, isolated section of the complex. The only way to reach her is to navigate the decaying halls, bypass security systems, and survive the growing madness both outside and within. If Philip can reach her, she promises answers. A cure. A way out. Driven by desperation and a fragile thread of trust, Philip sets out once more, Clarence whispering doubts in his ear, hoping that somewhere between the shadows salvation is still possible. As Philip inches his way through the shattered remnants of the archaic facility, piecing together logs, reports, and half-burned field notes, a deeper story begins to take shape, one far older and more unsettling than he ever imagined. Through conversations with Amabel Swanson and fragments of recovered data, Philip learns the true purpose of the archaic elevated caste's presence. They hadn't come to merely study the past, they came to unearth it. Buried beneath the ice and rock was something ancient, something whispered of in Inuit legend, the Tuurngait. These were not mere spirits or folklore. The Tuurngait was real, primordial, sentient entity that had slumbered for millennia beneath the earth. The archaic's deep earth expedition disturbed it, and what they uncovered was not a relic, but a living, thinking virus. Once awakened, the Tuurngait spread throughout the base like a wildfire, warping the minds and bodies of those it touched, reshaping them into a collective, a hive intelligence defending itself from intruders. Among the personnel caught in the outbreak was Philip's father, Howard. But Howard had encountered something different. He hadn't succumbed. He had communicated with the Tuurngait. What he had learned in exchange shattered him. Before taking his own life, Howard managed to send Philip a final letter. In it, he begged his son to finally destroy his research, to bury the knowledge that had doomed both of them. It was not merely science that had brought them to this place. It was arrogance. And it had awakened something that should have remained buried. Now standing in the depths of the frozen facility, Philip realizes his father's final wish may be the only way to undo the horrors unleashed by the archaic. But Clarence's voice grows louder. The Tuurngait is not done with him yet. After a harrowing journey through darkness, death, and the slow unraveling of his own mind, Philip finally reaches Amabel Swanson's lab. The fortified space is a fragile pocket of order amid the chaos, a sterile sanctuary untouched by the infected outside. Just as hope flickers to life, Clarence strikes. Twisting Philip's senses with cruel precision, the parasitic voice clouds his perception, bending reality until its friend and foe became one. In a moment of warped clarity, Philip sees a threat where none exists, where the hallucination breaks. It's too late. Amabel lies dead at his feet, her lifeless eyes wide with betrayal. Grief and horror took hold. But her work was not in vain. Among her scattered notes, Philip finds instructions, a way to purge Clarence from his mind. With trembling hands, he powers up the lab device designed for neural separation. And for the first time in what feels like forever, his thoughts fall silent. But Clarence isn't gone. The machine, never meant to destroy, instead transfers Clarence's essence into a nearby corpse. Reanimated by the virus and driven by pure hatred, his body lurches to life. Clarence reborn in flesh. Now haunted by the very thing he once shared his mind, Philip must face a nightmare of his own making. Just as Clarence, now a grotesque parody of life, lunges to finish what he started, salvation arrives from an unlikely source. The infected descend upon the reanimated corpse, not to harm Philip, but to destroy Clarence. No longer a thought within the hive, Clarence has become something singular, something separate. an abomination to the unity of the Tuurngait. Clearance gone, the Tuurngait finally reveals itself, not through violence, but through communion. Philip's mind is pulled inward, reality dissolving around him as he is cast into the dreamlike state. Here in this mental space sculpted by the Tuurngait's will, he is tested, not for strength, but for spirit. Trial by trial, the entity observes his choices. Will he show mercy where vengeance is easy? Will he cooperate where defiance is natural? Will he sacrifice himself for the sake of others? These are not just riddles or illusions. They are reflections of the Tuurngait's core question. Can humanity, the bringer of disruption and violence, ever truly understand coexistence? In this strange suspended space between the mind and something greater, Philip must answer, not with words, but with the choices that define him. Emerging from the depths of his own mind, having passed the trials of mercy, unity, and sacrifice, Philip is met with something he never expected. The Tuurngait, now speaking without riddles or deception, reveals its origins. It is not a monster, nor a disease, but an ancient intelligence. Something older than memory, older than man. It came to Earth millions of years ago, long before human civilization rose from the ice and stone. In those early days, it lived in harmony with the native Inuit, sharing its consciousness and ancient wisdom through chosen hosts. What mankind will one day call the infected, but these vessels were not cursed. They were conduits, bridges between species. Yet as time passed and humanity grew, restless, territorial, hungry, the Tuurngait withdrew, burrowed deep beneath the earth, not in fear, but in sorrow. It had seen the pattern before. Coexistence became impossibility. It slept, hidden beneath Greenland's frozen crust, waiting to be forgotten. But the archaic came. They drilled too deep, not out of malice, but out of pride. They sought to study the Tuurngait, to dissect its mystery, to tame what has never been meant to be caged. The Tuurngait defended itself as any living thing would, by surviving. What the archaic called an outbreak was simply resistance. What they feared was a mind that could not be controlled. Now face to face with the ancient entity, Philip sees the world not through human eyes, but through the perspective of something far older and wiser. Something that has suffered not by choice, but by the failure of understanding. And the final choice it offers him is the one that matters most. Within the depths of the Tuurngait's consciousness, Philip is granted full clarity, a final revelation. The Tuurngait speaks not with anger, but with solemn understanding. It has observed humanity for millennia. As individuals, humans are capable of great compassion, insight, and sacrifice. But as a collective, they are ruled by fear, ambition, and destruction. The same cycle, curiosity turned to conquest, has repeated throughout time. And yet the Tuurngait sees something in Philip, something different. It confesses that it once placed his trust in another, Philip's father, Howard. To him, it revealed the same truth, extended the same plea, to erase the archaic's presence, destroy old traces of facility, and allow the Tuurngait to return to its eternal slumber and peace. Howard had understood, but Philip, in defiance of his father's final wish, came seeking answers instead of closure, and now that responsibility has passed to him. Tuurngait places itself in Philip's mercy once more. Through one last trial of conscience and reflection, it tests the weight of his choices, not just as a man, but as a symbol of what humanity could be. It asks him to send a message to the surface, a message not for help, but for destruction. The archaic's research, the evidence, the facility, everything must be wiped away. Only then can the Tuurngait be left in peace, hidden from those who would try again to understand it with scalpels and steel. Philip returns to the physical world changed, worn, weathered, and burdened by the truth. The Tuurngait's final plea echoes in his mind. Erase the facility, bury the past, and let them rest. He appears to comply. With calm purpose, he accesses a nearby terminal and begins composing a message to the surface, addressed to a trusted friend. The message unfolds like a confession, a chronicle of everything he has endured. The cold desolation of Greenland, the madness of the mind, the death of Red, the hallucinations, the affection, Clarence, Amabel, and the ancient sorrowful truth of the Tuurngait. His tone is measured, almost serene, as he recounts the trials, the knowledge imparted, and the heavy responsibility placed upon him. It seems he has chosen peace. It seems he will honor the ancient entity's will. But as the final line appears on the screen, a shift takes place. Philip's words sharpen, his true thoughts emerging behind the mask of obedience. He refuses to be a pawn, Not to Clarence, not to the Tuurngait, not to anything claiming dominion over his will. In that moment, he chooses defiance. "I am not your messenger," he writes. "I am not your savior." He draws a line between blind submission and human agency, between coexistence and survival, between the hive and the self. And then with one final act, he sends the coordinates of the mind. His last words are stark, chilling, and absolute. Kill them all.